Hey, what's up? Today I am interviewing Michael Glavin, and he is the founder and the head designer for ZenBivy. So, Michael, why don't you tell me about yourself? What kind of makes you tick?
Yeah, well, I like a lot of your viewers. I'm passionate about the outdoors, and I had gone to college to learn television production and video editing, ironically. And after college, I used to work at CNN, where I met my wife, and she also had a passion for the outdoors, and we
Oh,
ended up
nice.
moving into a Volkswagen van, moving west,
Yeah.
quitting our jobs, and pursuing that. And that's what kind of led me into the outdoor industry and trying to combine my passions with my work, like a lot of people have
Yeah.
tried to do. And that sort of is what has brought us here.
Nice. Um, how did it come about that you started ZenBivy?
Oh, whew, that's a really long story. I originally started my own business manufacturing gear under a different name. It was called Enlightened, believe it or not. I realized there's another quilt company called Enlightened, but predates that. That was back in around 2000. And I had actually launched a tent called the Malkin tent and a trekking pole line. At the time, it was a trekking pole tent, ironically, way before any of that time. And I ended up not going forward with the business because my wife got pregnant with my son, who's now 18.
Okay.
That was the original ZenBivy, the original as a business, and the original ZenBivy bed was developed during that time. The very first concept of basically a bed, a mattress, and a quilt held together by a sheet. Um, the first prototypes were made at that time. That's now over 20 years ago. It must be 2001 or something like that.
Okay.
And then I went on to other things. I worked at GSI. I did sleeping bags again at Sierra Designs. We did the backcountry bed and the backcountry quilt and the mobile mummy designs they're still doing today.
Yeah.
So that was my sort of first time actually doing sleeping bags in the market. Prior to that, it was at Cascade Designs, was where the original idea for the beds came, was even before that, was when I worked at Cascade Designs. They made
Yeah.
mattresses, and I wanted to convince them to get into sleeping bags. And nobody there wanted to do sleeping bags because Cascade had failed in sleeping bags earlier at that. And I would tell people, no, not sleeping bags, beds. We're going to make beds. Um, so that was where the original idea came from. Was just I just had an idea instead of approaching it as you get a mattress and a sleeping bag and all these sort of different things, and you kind of piece them together to build your own, you know, thing, that the bed should just be built to go together from the beginning, um, which is harder than you think because those original designs from 2002 didn't work. They were, they were a quilt and a sheet, or a quilt and a mattress, but they couldn't. But the key patents that make a ZenBivy bed work, I didn't have those ideas yet. And typically, what happens if you try and make a bed is it's heavier than a mummy bag. So the patents in the ZenBivy bed that came when I started working on that in 2017, they're what really allows a ZenBivy bed to actually perform as well as a mummy bag normally, but still have all the weight. So that took a long time. I had to keep kind of coming to it. And really, that work that we did at Spear Designs is with those earlier backcountry bed there was sort of the predecessor to sort of developing.
Yeah. That kind of leads us into it. So, what makes your system special?
Well, every other sleeping bag is a bag.
Yeah.
And this is a bed. I guess you could argue that quilts aren't a bag. They're more. like a blanket, and obviously the very basis of a ZenBivy bed is a backpacking quilt.
Yeah.
It's just it's the sheet that holds it to the mattress that really
Yeah.
makes a difference. Now we have a lot of differences in our quilts that we're proud of that we think makes them special on their own. But the reality is, what really differentiates a ZenBivy bed from a backpacking quilt at all is that two-piece design that makes it work and feel and function like a bed. So it is the first um, so you can use it like a quilt, or when you combine it with that sheet, you
Yeah.
can still use it like a bed, but have it feel tucked in and give yourself the same thermal benefits of a mummy bag, including the lack of drafting that a mummy bag can provide for you. Um, and so it allows you to really do both and a lot more comfortably. I think it's really that everything else is a bag and this is a bed.
Yeah.
This is really maybe the first. I shouldn't say that because Nemo did their spoon bag, and I think their spoon bag was sort of designed around the way that people sleep. But um, the ZenBivy bed was one of the first sleeping bags that was out there that was really designed to allow you to sleep in the positions that you actually sleep in.
Yeah.
They were really started with the user and what positions do they sleep in and what movements do they take throughout the night and how do we build something that allows you to duplicate that as much as possible.
Yeah.
People who go backpacking, even enthusiasts, aren't going out. If an enthusiast goes out 20 days a year of 365, you can't retrain your body to sleep well during that period of time
Yeah.
typically. And that's a super enthusiast. That's a lot of nights for people. Most people, it's a night here, a night there. And so if you're really going to make that backcountry sleeping experience seamless, you are trying to fake your body out and make it feel like this is as much as possible like the way that I sleep in my bed at home. And the more we were talking earlier about pillows, the more that it feels, it mimics the experience that you're used to, the easier you're going to just transition into sleeping into the
Yeah.
backcountry and be comfortable. And nothing makes the determines the success or failure of a backcountry trip really more than how successfully you slept and camped really at night.
Yeah.
Um, you hear the best stories of people who had the most horrific days, um, but they loved the trip. It was incredible. It was raining and terrible. And we did all these things because when then we got to camp and we
Yeah.
sat around inside of our bivvies and had coffee and talked about it. And it was a comfortable night. And if you spend a couple nights out in the in a miserable night, that defines the trip. And
That's usually a deal breaker for people I found.
people who have suffered all night long remember it, and
Yeah.
it prevents you from going.
Yeah.
Um, you know, there's certain, you're just more open to go if you have this feeling that, oh, I just grab my thing. It's not gonna. I don't have to. What I love a little bit mostly about the ZenBivy bed is you don't have to choose. Or let me bring my comfortable one or my light one, or it kind of
Yeah.
feels like it does enough of those things that there aren't very any compromises, and so you feel like, well, I'll just grab my ZenBivy bed and I'll be able to sleep comfortably at night, and that is very reassuring and empowering for the things that you want to do during the day,
Yeah.
especially around here where I live, where we look out and it's like, oh, it's going to be poor weather. Are we going to go? Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
go because at least at night I'll sit there with my coffee and
Yeah.
I'll sleep. It'll be fine. Read my book. So
Yeah.
it's really just trying to allow the sleep part at the end of the day to um, be a priority because it really does have a huge impact on the success of the trip and how much you want to
Yeah.
continue to go.
Yeah. I encourage, guys that I know and people that I meet, I encourage them to get out there because, where I live, we've got, by the base of like Donner, we've got so many trails. There's over 200 trails that don't even necessarily go to each other in a 50-mile radius of where I'm at. And it is so much fun. But But the thing that my Siri watch told me something. Um, but the thing that I found is like I'll have friends that'll be, hey, I'm gonna just get like this stuff at Walmart. I'm like, you're never gonna do it again if you're not comfortable. So I usually will provide them with some stuff because I have a ton of extra stuff. And that way they can dabble in it and they don't have to put their money in. But the sleep is the number one thing when somebody says they're not going to do it again, it's always because of the sleep.
Right, right. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is the most common one. Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
not always. Bugs can sometimes do it to people too, driving. I'm one of those who like the bugs can drive insane.
Yeah.
Um, so it's like some people are able to just like go into their Zen place with the bugs and whatever, and I tend to be a swatter. I'm finding my place with the bugs, but yeah, that's the other one for me is not being able to sleep and then having just bugs can ruin a trip for me if they're super intense.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, we get bugs in the morning and the evening during the summer up here, but middle of the day, all night long, it's pretty good.
yeah,
But, it's different. Appalachian Trail, I heard there's some flies on it that basically will try to eat you alive and they just drive you mad.
yeah, maybe black flies. I've
Yeah.
not done the AT. I've done a few sections in North Carolina, but I haven't done long sections of the AT.
Yeah. I've never got to go on the AT yet, so I'm looking forward to it. So I'm hoping by the time I can no longer do this, that I've I've tackled at least a good portion of all the major trails. I'm probably never going to be a through hiker, but I love doing large sections, and that's more my style. What way do you like to do it? What kind of backpacking do you prefer?
See, I come at backpacking from the climbing world. So
Okay.
I started to get into lightweight backpacking because as a climber, it's a necessity because you have to carry all the climbing gear. And so the backpacking gear has to be
Right.
light. But what I found was my favorite kinds of trips and the ones that I think are sort of most defining are off trail high alpine traverses here in the Cascades. We have several sections. Probably the most famous one is called the Ptarmigan Traverse, where you get on in the North Cascades at Cascade Pass and you travel south and you come out near Dome Peak.
Okay.
Um, and it's most people, it's about a week of all off trail, some technical glaciers. There's a good bit of glacier travel and steep. So it's definitely a mountaineering sort of route,
Right.
but it's not so hard that you're bringing all the gear. So I love the mountain routes, but I don't like carrying all the gear to do all the technical routes, and I don't like super technical routes that are slow. I'd
Yeah.
rather be moving and not be just sort of pushed to the sort of technical limit. So I love those
Yeah.
places where you do need technical expertise because you're going through the severe sort of mountains here or whatever, but we're not climbing.
Yeah.
We're really just, traversing along and just trying to stay high the whole time up above the trees. So that's a big one. The Pickett's Traverse in the North Cascades is one of the hardest, longest
Huh.
that you could go into. That one involves notorious and unsavory bushwhacking and
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. So I
Yeah.
love those harder trips. Have been the ones that are um, that I think are the most fulfilling for me. And really, more recently, any trip that's longer. I've done the Wonderland Trail here, which is just a simple backpacking trail around Mount Rainier, and
Yeah.
um, I've done it a few times actually, but the last time I did it, I really enjoyed it, and um, I tend to enjoy them after 3 or 4 days. I find after like 3 or 4 days on the trail is when you kind of get in that rhythm of I could do this for. That's where like three after I do a trail for 3 or 4 days, I can
Yeah.
totally understand the long trail sort of mindset because you get in that groove where I could just go forever now.
Yeah.
right? As long as I could just pick up food along the way, I could just roll and roll and roll. And so I do see, I also don't have aspirations for especially the actual um, trails, which, I feel like they're done now and there's a lot of other stuff out there, but
Yeah.
longer sort of trips where you can kind of get into that same mindset of self-reliance, excuse me, and
Yeah.
I don't know, just the rhythm of being out there where it feels like I'm living in comfort. This is my life now, and
Yeah.
tomorrow I'm going to get up and I'm going to hike along, and I'm happy and I'm moving well, and comfortable, and it's
Yeah.
kind of flowing along. Um, and and you're away from all of the other complexities of life, and it's really empowering. It makes you realize you really don't need that much because
Yeah.
I could do this for none, right, and kind of keep going. So
Yeah.
longer, those longer trips.
Yeah.
And one last part is, as I've gotten older, I'm also a sea kayaker, and I've been doing a lot of ocean sea kayaking, and
Are you
those trips.
doing the were you taking it's kind of like bike packing, but you're taking everything in your kayak and going out and camping?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And the trips we've done most recently is, as I've gotten more skilled at kayaking, we do more outer coast trips where we're going out into the ocean and playing in the waves and the rocks. And then, the
Yeah.
boats are huge. So when you land on beach, it's you and your, anything you wanted. And in fact, they're so big, you can easily get bogged down by too much stuff there,
Yeah.
because it's easy to sort of take everything. But, um, I keep it as minimal as possible, but I definitely take like a big chair. I have a big, chair that goes in there, and I have a three-person tent that I for just myself that I take sea kayaking, and
Yeah.
all the luxuries sort of go
Yeah.
along, and food and beer, and
Right.
it all go right in the boat. So it's definitely a different sort of, you know, mindset from backpacking, but it's still, a smaller boat. It's backpacking gear that you're taking, but it's
Right.
like, imagine that the weight didn't matter,
Right.
right? And what could you sort of bring along, and what do you do? And that's what sea kayaking is. So, at least in
Yeah.
terms of the um, camping element of it. So,
Yeah, I like stuff that I do like it after like the first 2 days when I kind of get my trail legs and I get in the groove. And it doesn't matter if it's bike packing or traditional backpacking. It takes me that first 2 days to acclimate, and then my mind and everything is just, set. But I like stuff where there's things for me to do in a challenge. And, part of the reason why I absolutely love gear is because with what I do now, I get to test all kinds of gear, which means I'm always trying something new. I'm always, figuring out a challenge. I'm always, um, got something to overcome. And the trips that have been the most difficult tend to be the ones that I remember and love the most.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that always goes that way, right? The ones
Yeah.
that are the bigger the challenge, the better the memory in the end. Sometimes in the moment, though,
Yeah.
they're not. That's not what um, in the moment. But those are the ones that you don't. It's funny, people forget about the suffering moments that sort of occur and the challenges during the day. But when
Yeah.
they don't sleep well, they remember that,
Yeah.
right? And then that night we didn't get any sleep. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So that's a great way back to the product. So, um, I personally have purchased the light bed, and that's what I use. And I got it because when you introduced the light bed, it was light enough that I could go, you know, this is the same as a light sleeping bag or lighter than most actually. And for me, I found that that works really well for me. But you've come out with a newer one, and that is your ultralight.
Correct. So from the very beginning, quilts are um, came from the ultralight world. The majority of quilts still that are sold
Yeah.
today are sold to ultralight backpackers or to backpackers as an ultralight sort of option. And they've
Yeah.
always been in the higher fill power downs and the lighter denier fabrics. And
Yeah.
ZenBivy has always, our original bed was a much more middle of the road, 700 fill power,
Yeah.
even had a 50D liner, still has to this day a 50D
Yeah.
liner and a 20D shell. So not that, that upper end. There's a few reasons that I didn't want to pursue that. Part of them is that I've been in the industry a long time and I know what I'm doing. And the problem with trying to, so that the people who are buying those 900 fill power Tim denier quilts, they are experts.
Yeah.
And when you market a new idea to an expert and you go to them and you say, see what you're doing right now, I have a better way. The first reaction from the expert community is, how can you have a better way than me? I'm the expert, right? So
Yeah.
marketing to that expert, if you think of like a lot of the big innovations in other industries, 29-inch wheels in mountain biking, shape skis, if you're that old in
Yeah.
skiing. The last user group in skiing to adopt shape skis was downhill racers.
Yeah.
And the last people to really fully adopt the larger 29-inch mountain bike wheel were the big travel sort of bikes. And even like the trail bikes, getting people, the
Right.
whole bike has changed to fit it. And the the experts are the most resistant to change, ironically, because you'd think that they're the people who'd be like, I want the new thing,
Yeah.
and whatever. But especially when you have something that's to an ultralight community that says, oh yeah, your quilt, I know I've added something,
Yeah.
right? It's like, oh well, you've added something that's not light. I'm light, and that's the
Yeah.
opposite. And still to this day, pure ultralighters will see this and be like, oh, it's like kind of a car camping thing, or it's only sort of recently that people would able to look at it in sort of the ultralight, mindset. So
Yeah.
I knew that in order to really appeal to that, expert level customer, you can't say, trust me, it's better. You have to prove it.
Right.
And so what's happened with the ZenBivy bed is we have hundreds of thousands of nights of people in ZenBivy beds now proving that they work and are comfortable. And
Yeah.
there's a general acceptance in the ultralight communities that there is a limitation to where you can take quilts on their own, and there is a limitation to the straps and other systems that they do to try and minimize the
Yeah.
limitations of quilts. And so now it feels like that timing is right. We've kind of
Yeah.
and there was a few features that we wanted to test. That half sheet that you see this year was something that we wanted to really vet and make sure that those things really work. We'd always had full sheet, and
Yeah.
so in the last two seasons we had some sheets out called fast sheets that were like the first half sheets to really just have enough user nights under that concept before we really went all in on it. And then all of our quilts have also always had a convertible foot box, and I could have just done a straight closed foot box in the other quilt, but we want to do things that are different and better than other
Yeah.
people. And so now we have the fast foot box, which is a much lighter, saves about 2 ounces
Yeah.
um, over the convertible foot box. So it's a more pure ultralight sort of design. And the other big problem was, those lightweight fabrics are calendared. I don't know if you know what calendaring is, but you take a fabric and you um, melt one side of it. And so instead of coating it to make the down proof so the down doesn't come through, we melt one side of it. And it
Yeah.
makes that side fill in all the holes so the down can't come through, but it makes it shiny and a bit sticky. And on really lightweight fabrics, to get the holes to fill so they're down proof, on most tendonier fabrics, they calendar on both sides. And so the fabrics have that shiny, sticky
Yeah.
feel, clingy. And a lot of those 10D fabrics are just so, and the weight of our 20D fabric was always just so close, and it felt so much better that I could never really find a fabric to.
Yeah.
And eventually we tested I could show you a box over there, probably of like 15 different ultralight quilts with all kinds of different fabrics on it. And we ultimately ended up going with name Brett Pertex Quantum,
Yeah.
10D that um, is only, its key thing is it's only calendared on one side to me. And so the other side feels like fabric. And it's so that
Yeah.
it's a much more comfortable sort of hand. So we differentiate, even though we're an online company, our fabrics feel, a lot of people get them and have that, whoa, this feels way
Yeah.
better than what I sort of envisioned. I love hearing about that because it's so hard for us to sell how much energy we put into, dialing in the water jetting the yarns, and you can't even imagine what goes into to make the
Right.
fabrics feel like really sort of soft.
Yeah.
So that's what kind of led up to so there really are some new innovations in that fast foot box, the half sheet. It now has the Kylie curve, which is our new patented. That's now 2 years old, which is a draw cord at the top that allows you to sort of create a differential cut and hook the thing over your shoulder without
Yeah.
lifting the quilt off of the mattress on the sides when it's sort of tucked in. So it kind of had all those features and was like fully refined. I feel like the 2024 beds that we're shipping this year are like the ones that I would say are finally like to the even yours, the little hooks last year that we had with the little cord.
Yeah.
We've now refined those so that the hook is now, a little perfect. So I feel like all the
Yeah, because you got rid of the loop style on one end and you put in, I don't
yeah,
know what the right term is.
the little piece of grosgrain webbing.
Yeah.
The hooks used to be ones that we would just buy, like a little hook. And in order to keep them from rotating around, we held them in with the cord. And the cord just looked, it worked and it wasn't ugly, but to me it was just a little kludgy, just wasn't refined.
Yeah.
That's probably what it is. It's not. There was nothing wrong with it, but it didn't look refined. And now we've refined it, and
Yeah.
it made that clip a lot shorter. And it only needs to work for what ZenBivy needs to work it for. We made our own clip and we held it on with grow grain, so it looks just more purposeful and refined. Um, and so it feels like the bed has kind of reached a point where it's ready to kind of take it to the top level. Because when you fill it with 900 fill power down and you put it in Pertex, the price
Yeah.
goes. I mean, they're crazy. So
Yeah.
the but the cool news is the
Yeah.
light bed, the one that you have, has all those same innovations. So there literally is no design difference between the light bed and the ultralight bed. The difference is the expense and weight of the materials. I think
Yeah.
it's in our size large and 25-inch. Well, don't quote me, but I think it's a 6 ounce difference, or maybe even only a 5 ounce difference between the ultralight and the light bed.
So I
It's
figured out what the
over
difference was.
$100
Yeah.
difference, right?
Yeah.
So the vast majority of people, that light bed is still the one I think to get. You have to, I think, be
Yeah.
really, wanting to make an investment that's going to save a few
Yeah.
ounces. Then you're going to have it for a long time.
Yeah.
But for the majority of people, I think the light bed still provides certainly the best bang for your buck because you're getting almost as light as the super
Yeah.
expensive stuff. Um, and you're getting all the features of
Yeah.
our most premium bed, but and they still ain't cheap. People tell me all the time.
Yeah.
But it's not that crazy premium price for the Pertex and the 900 volt power that we put in
Yeah.
our most premium version.
Yeah. A lot of people don't when I have people go, "Well, why would you spend that much money on something?" I start to talk about, well, in order to get it lighter, you have to go to a higher um, fluff of down.
Right.
And in order to do that, that way you can put less in. And then on top of that, sorting down from feathers is still very much a manual process. And so a lot of these companies, in order to get something that's 90-10, which still has some feathers in it, it's expensive. A lot of places I get stuff in all the time that is they call it 800 down, but then it's like 40% feathers, 30% feather.
Oh,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, that's not even their fill powder.
Yeah.
So yeah, the feather content is one of them. Certainly
Yeah.
the more premium downs cost more and lighter fabrics cost more.
Yeah.
Um, and that really is the difference. We have another bed. We've talked about the ultralight bed and then the core bed. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, the ultralight bed and the light bed. And then we have another one that's again very similar in design. It doesn't have the half length sheet, but the quilt is the exact same design. And it's
Yeah.
a 650 fill power and a
Yeah.
30D and a 50D. And it's $100 less for the quilt even than the light
Yeah.
bed. So really, if there's somebody
Yeah.
who it, when I talk to somebody who's like, I love his ZenBivy bed, but I don't want to spend all the money,
Right.
but I still want to go light. If you do a core quilt with our light sheet, which is a half sheet,
Right.
they all match with one another. That is, I want to say, if it's an uninsulated one, right around $200 for the bed
Right.
quilt and sheet, which is
Yeah.
for a down quilt, a
Yeah.
pretty good price. And it's probably,
Right.
I'd have to do the math, but when you think about how much weight you're saving for a lot of people, if you're, if you're really dollar conscious, there's great ways to do it. And literally in our line, the only difference between the designs, it's not like, you got to get cheaped out in the lower ones. Really, the only difference is those fabrics and those fills. And the other advantage of less expensive fabrics is that they're typically more comfortable.
Yeah.
To get that Pertex, the reason that Pertex is crazy expensive, I could have used a fabric that's just as light, but I
Yeah.
wanted it to feel good, and I spent a lot of money to make it feel good.
Right.
Well, down at the $179 quilt, you can make it feel really good without having to spend a lot of money. And so
Right.
our most comfortable quilts tend to be the least expensive because you can make really great fabrics. If you're not trying to make them crazy light,
Right.
it's way easier to make them more comfortable. So
Yeah.
lots of options on how to do it, and that's kind of how we want to make it be accessible for
Yeah.
everyone. So I like talking about the ultralight one. We're actually selling them very successfully, and people there is sort of a market for them. But the one thing I don't like about it is want to send the messages that you really need that because you really don't need that. And
Right.
if you want to do the Pacific Crest Trail, you could do the Pacific Crest Trail with a light bed. And if you don't have the money for a light bed, you can do it with a core bed.
Yeah.
And it's not like you're carrying around pounds and pounds and pounds and pounds down the trail for
Right.
the expensive one. So we really want to make it accessible for people because if you're trying
Yeah.
to get people to go out more often, having all your products priced so high that they can't afford it isn't
Right.
helping them. So,
Well, that's one of the things that I like that I heard you mentioning the mountain biking and stuff earlier. So I used to race mountain bikes and I did it as an amateur, but I absolutely loved it. And then I went on to be a coach and really enjoyed it. Got to work with people like Nielsen Palace, who's now, a Tour de France rider and stuff like that. Just so you know, just for full disclosure, I was his coach technically for his high school team, but I was not actually his coach. He was teaching me how to coach. So,
oh, I see.
yeah, by the time he was 16, he had already gotten um, eighth in the worlds for under 21. And I mean that was killer. But there's a point. Bikes come in tiers. You always have something that's much more affordable, and there's a certain range of quality, but then you get to that range, and then from then on you're paying for weight. So the more
Right.
expensive, the lighter it is. It's not even a performance issue, it's just lightness. I feel like with your quilts, you start out at the point where everything is really good quality. From then on, it's lightness, and um, and I love
Yeah,
the
we started the and then we
yeah,
do XT and XTR. I
right,
built a group name.
yeah,
Right, yeah, right,
So you're
exactly.
not a SRAM guy then.
I no. The funny thing is that I named Shimano, but actually a full SRAM. I don't have any Shimano on any of my bikes. It's all SRAM.
Yeah.
So red, no, not red. Rival. I have on my steel, road
Yeah.
bike, and then XO, XXO. They've
Yeah.
they. I remember when it was just five, six, seven, right? And then
Yeah.
before it got double X's and all the O's, and they ran out of like the number. I think it was like X7, 7 speed, X8, 8 speed. But now they've got so many groups, it's hard to know what they
Yeah.
evolved. But
Yeah.
yeah, similar sort of approach. We literally call them builds, right? That
Yeah.
they are. And our drawings are the same for each one of them, and it's that exact sort of thing. It's the function of the parts don't vary. It really is weight, and for us, a little bit of the feel is part of it too, because you might choose a heavier one just for a nicer feel if you're just a car camper.
Right.
Right? And the cost of weight in backpacking is very much like it is in cycling, where it's insanity.
Yeah.
And some of the products they make where you're looking at it's like 6 grams,
Yeah.
$85, and
Yeah.
you're doing the gram per dollar
Right.
kind of calculation. It's no different in backpacking. If you
I
do it
was
for the
I
same.
was just an amateur. My last bike that I bought for cross country racing um, was, I want to say, so I actually got a discount because I was a part of a team that essentially gets a small discount. So I got like a 20% discount and I still paid like almost $8,000 for that bike. Um, and that was because I was at the point where I needed the lighter bike to still be competitive. Because, for a while it's about how good you are, what kind of gifts you've been given for lung capacity, everything
Right,
else.
right,
But then there's a point where everybody's kind of evenly matched, and now it's how light is your bike so that when you climb that hill, you can climb it faster than the other guy.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, one of the things is one of the higher end gear, especially in biking,
yeah,
really ends up helping the the mediocre, not mediocre, but the mainstream, I guess,
right.
athlete even more than it helps the more elite athlete.
Yeah,
And so I remember telling somebody who was wanting to buy a bike, it's like, it's not like a skill level,
right.
right? Where I get to a certain skill level, so I deserve this other bike or whatever.
Yeah,
A nicer bike helps. The lower your skill level, the more the nicer bike is really going to help you. It really
yeah,
boils down to, again, how much do you want to invest in it and what do you feel like you're going to get out of it? And a beginner,
yeah,
it's not wise to buy a $4,000 bike for your first bike or something,
yeah.
because you don't really know what you want. But if you did nail what you wanted in that first bike, you'd and you're not overbiked.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not like this won't be nice for me to
Yeah.
ride on or whatever.
Yeah.
Everybody gets on them and goes, "Wow, this is really nice."
Yeah.
Everyone likes it when
Right.
it's a really nice.
So that kind of brings us back to your systems. So your different bed systems. One of the things that I said in one of my videos was I feel like any system you pick is good, and they've got you've got prices that are set for like almost every financial part of the market, because your core bed, if you do the light sheet with your core bed, the price on it and the weight on it, I believe it's still a little bit lighter than carrying a 650 filled down that is in the same price range, and you're going to get a much better sleep because
It
it's
would
what your body's used to.
lighter. So at the super high end, like a ZenBivy
Yeah.
bed is technically lighter than a mummy bag of the same size, but
Yeah.
in reality, for a ZenBivy bed to work, it does need to be a little larger than a mummy bag inside.
Yeah.
So they don't exactly compare, but at the higher end,
Yeah.
um, they are really close.
Yeah.
But as you get into the heavier and heavier ones, the
Yeah.
advantages of a ZenBivy bed really start to amplify because you're not
Yeah.
adding all that insulation underneath, you're using the
Right.
mattress, and all those benefits start to give you a little bit more. So you do find that it's like when you start to compare to mummy bags with our core bed, they appeal they're very favorable weight wise for sure
Right.
compared to other things in that same kind of like a 650 fill power
Yeah.
price point
Yeah.
in the market. So
Yeah. And your most expensive system, just to tell you, I never really had the financial ability to buy those $1,000 sleeping bags and stuff.
right.
I've always kind of been above middle, but never quite that high. And um, your system is actually pretty cheap. I've heard people say like, if you get everything, including the pad for the lightest, most grandiose of all your stuff, that they're spending a little under 1,000. But my
Mhm.
sleep system's nowhere near that. And I actually wonder if they really ran the numbers right on your highest level. Um,
Oh yeah, no, when
but
you start to add the new ultralight bed into it, you can get up to 800. And if you do the 10-degree, you could be over 1,000. If you
okay,
include the sheet, the quilt, the pillow, the mattress.
yeah,
So ZenBivy
yeah,
sometimes gets stung a lot because they're like, oh, it's a system and the mattress is sort of part of it. And so it feels like that's people kind of add that into the price. It's like,
right,
well, you need a mattress for every other sleeping bag too.
yeah,
You do have to, sort of pull that
yeah,
sort of out of the equation. But
yeah, because
yeah,
they're gonna
using
buy something
I
else
think
if they're
the
not
degree
buying
ultra
that.
like that around just over 600, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The one I have, I feel like it's a great price point at the light bed. It's like you said, that's probably going to be kind of the majority of people. But um, so I had a point, and the point was this: is that um, a lot of really high-end sleeping bags. I just got a sleeping bag that a company sent me, and they want me to review it. And I was looking at that, and then I went on their website to look at the price point, and that sleeping bag was $850. And
Huh.
that's just the sleeping bag. You don't get the mat, the air mattress for people. You don't
Right.
get the
Right.
mat, you don't get a pillow, you don't get any of that stuff. And just for that sleeping bag, and I'm like, holy crap. Pardon my French, but um, no, I like the fact that your stuff is reasonably light at even those entry price points and stuff. And I think that was a great way to do it for your offerings. And I think that that's one of the things that I think people should know is um, you can go less expensive and still have reasonable weighted stuff that's light. It's not heavy, because my sleeping bag that I used to carry just as little as 10 years ago was 4 pounds. And, you know, was there lighter at that time? Yeah, but it was considered ultralight to have 2.5 pounds in those days. And so carrying around 3 pounds is not that big of a deal. It's not a deal breaker as far as I'm concerned. But I'll tell you, I weighed my pillow. So I have the pillow with the pillow topper,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
and I weighed my pillow. I weighed my mattress. I weighed the quilt and the sheet, and it comes in at 3 pounds 1 ounce.
For the whole system.
The whole system. I'm
Yeah.
like, that's a sleeping bag.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, yeah, you can easily get, yeah, that's a pretty good weight to go for. I think,
yeah,
if you think about it for backpacking, if you can get the sleep system down to 3.5 pounds in the pack, that's, for most people, that's going to get you into that certainly like 15-pound base weight kind
right.
of range or
Hey, this is Future Mark. The recorder stopped 10 minutes before the end of the interview. And I just want to say thank you to Michael Glavin for coming on my channel and doing this interview. And for those of you, if you like this kind of content, please hit that like and subscribe. And other than that, there is affiliate links down in the description below, and I'll see you on the next one.